Most of the changes you're going to notice are to plurals, okay? But one thing I just want you to ensure that you do with typical case examples, you do have to give credit where you find the information. Now, if you take the language directly from the website, you're going to either have to use a structure that's what's called an inserted quotation. It's quotes that essentially are 4 lines or less of information from a source. Notice this would be 1, 2, that's a 2-line quote. This also would be a 2-line quote, and it's in quotation marks. However, if you take information that's larger than 4 lines, if it's 5 lines or more, this is going to be from here to here a block quote. Okay, and you're going to give credit to where you found it. Now, if you paraphrase, as I mentioned here, this would be a paraphrase because this particular student didn't copy and paste from a website. She actually just overviewed the information that she found from the website Indeed.com. Now, if you feel like you need more information from just the brief overview I gave of MLA, and I do understand it's very brief, I would encourage you to go to our modules page, look under week 2, and there's a module 5, and there's some detailed overviewing of MLA documentation. Al Purdue provides a great website that overviews how to give credit to your sources in the body of your essay and also through your works cited. This is an MLA packet underneath letter B that I've given my students. It explains how to give credit to your sources in the body of your essay and also in the works cited. There's a PowerPoint from Al Purdue. EasyBib is an awesome place to go to create your works cited, and there's these other handouts and also a video as well if you need help. Also, if you're unsure how to give credit to a source, if you want to email me the website link, I can give you more information on how to do that in correct MLA documentation. I'm not requiring you to use source information for the example illustration essay, but more than likely most of you will be wanting to use information from maybe a college or university website. Possibly from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So if you take information from those websites, you need to ensure that you do give credit, because if you don't and you don't give that documentation, you would be accidentally plagiarizing, which would be cheating, and I don't want you to make that mistake. Now, I do want to go back to that structure. Again, I've mentioned really the personal experience and the typical case in more detail, but I want you to use as many different types of examples as possible. I mean, you're going to notice this student, her essay, she used several different examples in both of her paragraphs. I mean, she uses a lot of typical case where she actually takes information from websites, but also just generalized information. You know, people who major in a certain, program and also work within a particular field, as a whole, in general, they will likely do these things, okay? And this would be a generalized example. There's another one a little bit later. She does mainly use typical case and generalized, okay? But I want you to feel like you can use as many as possible. She does later give a hypothetical example of what could happen to get promoted. I'm not expecting you to use all the different types of examples, and that's one thing that I mentioned later when I go over those different types of examples. I'm not expecting you to use the personal experience, typical case, hypothetical, generalized, and dramatic. You can just use a few of these. What I don't want to see is just merely personal experience or only typical case. A good, well-versed writer is going to use as many different types of examples as possible. Use the ones that are going to be the best for you to discuss those 2 degrees. Okay, or the best ones to discuss those 2 jobs. It's going to be your choice through your research. What do you think are going to be the most important examples to give to your reader? Just some tips. Don't forget that your thesis needs to focus on either your degree programs or your careers. Again, it can be 3-point or generalized. Vary those types of examples, which I've already mentioned. Avoid generalizations. You're going to have to do some research to have that knowledge. Don't just start writing without doing any type of research on those degree programs or those jobs. They'll be just kind of scratching the surface and not really going into detail. Excuse me. Also use transitional words to shift between the 2 degrees, the 2 careers. Now, one thing that I want you to notice as far as with, the research, okay, you've got to document it, but it needs to be kind of seamless going from your ideas into the examples from the resources. Also, your body paragraphs need to be very, very structured. The example essay, One thing that I want you to notice is the thesis matches the structure of the body paragraphs. This student is discussing the salaries, educational levels, and job opportunities in relationship to both of her professions, the medical laboratory technician and the medical laboratory technologist. You'll notice it's very clear in her topic sentence. We know that she's opening with their salaries. Then later she shifts into their education requirements. A little bit further, she talks about the cost. Okay. Also the promotion and jobs and locations that you might be discussing. If you note in the next body paragraph, she uses the same structure. She talks about the salaries again first. Okay. Then she goes into the education that has to be required. The locations where you could get those degrees. Okay. The promotions, the locations where you could work. Whether you're talking about similarities between the two career programs, or you're talking about the differences between two professions, please just ensure that you use the same structure from one body paragraph to another. And I do want to kind of mention, although I have this structured as just two body paragraphs, this particular student, she could have broken up each, topic, the first degree, the second degree, the first job, the second job. She could have broken these down into individual paragraphs where she talks about, essentially, just to scroll up, for example, she talks about essentially the salaries in one paragraph. Then she goes into another paragraph where she talks about the educational requirements. Then she shifts into another paragraph where she talks about essentially the promotion and locations where they, someone could work. The only problem with it is that a sentence is going to give you 3 paragraphs about one job. So that means you're going to have to do 3 paragraphs about the other job. Now that would be 6 body paragraphs, and some of y'all get intimidated with writing 6 body paragraphs. I'm going to let it be up to you as the writer. I like to give you some freedom here. So you may end up with an essay where you have just only 4 paragraphs. You have an introduction paragraph. You have a body paragraph that talks about the first degree program. And then you have a second paragraph, body paragraph, that talks about the second degree program. As far as with the professions, again, you may have your first body paragraph where it discusses the first profession. The second body paragraph talks about the second profession. Or if you want to split them up and have maybe, 3 paragraphs about each to total 6, that's up to you. Now, after you finish your body paragraphs, you do need to ensure that you follow that structure and to go into your conclusion paragraph. Okay, restate your thesis, review your points, okay, and also, of course, your 2 topics, whether it's the degree programs or careers, and have a concluding sentence. This particular student, her conclusion paragraph starts on one page and then goes to the next. Even though there are some differences in the 2 professions' salaries, education requirements, and job opportunities, both medical laboratory technicians and medical laboratory technologists are important careers within the medical industry. That's her restating of her thesis, but also her points. Upon researching the 2 careers, I intend to pursue a career as a medical laboratory technician and eventually advance to a medical laboratory technologist with 1 more education. Now, she projects what she's going to do. You can do that. That's an appropriate concluding device. You project the future. In this case, it might be what degree you're going to go to, what job you're going to work. On the other hand, you can have a rhetorical question where maybe you ask the reader a question and it just makes them think about the 2 degrees. You can end on a joke as long as it's appropriate to your topic. A definition, you would need to, of course, give, the website where you found that particular quote or definition, and just make sure that your reader is going to take this particular information with them. Last thought about these 2 either degree programs or 2 jobs. I'm hoping that the student essay is going to kind of help you see how you can use all these different types of examples. Again, as I mentioned, I'm not expecting you to label your examples. I just did that so you could kind of see in a student's essay the types of examples she used. And again, her essay is only 4 paragraphs, but you may end up having more than 4 paragraphs, which is fine. Do the structure that's going to work the best for you. Okay, and also just ensure you kind of look back at some of the tips that I mentioned about as far as with your structure, your introduction, body paragraphs, your conclusion, the research requirements, and just basic tips like transitional words when you shift from one point to the other. And try to vary those examples. That's going to be the major thing that I see. As always, if you have questions on the example essay, please email me. I mean, I do try to create these in-depth videos so you know how to go to handouts and how they're going to help you with the assignments. But I know there's always unanswered questions, so email me, call me, whatever you need, I'll be happy to help you. Good luck with your example illustration essays, and I look forward to hearing about your potential college degrees or your potential jobs. And hopefully this assignment will give you a little bit of researched information to help you make an educated choice on your future. Thank you. Good luck with your writing.